Good morning, friends. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Medical Classes by Dr. Srinidhi Kumar Acharya. Please don't forget to subscribe my channel, and also I request please give your valuable comments. In the last class, we are discussing about some of the basic concepts of genetics, and we have seen the basic classification of genetic disorders in the last class. As we know, genetical disorders are divided into Mendelian inheritance disorders, non-Mendelian inheritance disorders, and chromosomal disorders. Chromosomal disorders are where there is some structural problem in the chromosomes, maybe deletion, disjunction, or fragile, etc. And most of the time, the gene involvement is not there. Rather, there will be some problem at the time of rapid cell division during the primary and as well as secondary meiotic division. As a result, there may be trisomies, monosomies, or etc. can be developed. Whereas Mendelian inheritance disorders and non-Mendelian inheritance disorders, so they are basically divided in many steps. Mendelian inheritance disorders are basically divided into single gene disorders, and they're also multifactorial disorders and mitochondrial inheritance disorders. The Mendelian inheritance disorders basically divided into single gene disorder, and that single gene disorder may be autosomal single gene disorders, or it may be sex chromosome single gene disorders, and there may be autosomal dominant disorders and autosomal recessive disorders, and there may be X-linked dominant and X-linked or sex-linked recessive disorders. So this is a basic classification. So out of all this, today we will going to only discuss about some of the Mendelian inheritance disorders. Mendelian inheritance disorders. Now we know the concepts of Mendelian. He is actually the one who started working on the genetics for the first time. Although later he was ignored to some extent, later based on the principles of the Mendelian only, the presently available genetics has been developed. Anyway, we will see that. So when Mendelian was doing his research on the peanut plants, as we have seen, okay, so he formulated certain rules. What are that? Law of segregation, law of independent assortment, law of dominance, so law of incomplete dominance, codominance, complete dominance, etc. Different monohybrid and dihybrid plants. He has conducted this his work, and later he concluded that the transmission of, that means the genetic inheritance qualities are get inherited according to these some of the rules. These are some of the rules, law of segregation, etc. So autosome, that means those single gene disorders which follow these rules of Mendelian during their transmission of the disease from one generation to another generation, or may not be a disease-free condition also physiologically, when there is transmission of qualities of the previous generation to the next generation, they obey these rules and regulations to some extent, and therefore these disorders are called as a Mendelian inheritance disorders. Okay, so we will see the details. Now Mendelian inheritance basically says that there is two important concepts like dominance and as well as recessiveness. This is a basic concept. This is how in the peanut plant also he say, okay, the dominant allele and as well as recessive allele. And usually this dominant allele is mentioned by capital letters, and the Punnett squares are used to denote the dominance, while the small letters or the lowercase letters, so they are indicative of the recessive. So when I write R, capital R and small letter r, that capital letter R suggests that that particular gene in that particular allele is a dominant one, whereas another gene which is small letter r, that is a recessive one. When I say R, capital letter, both R, it suggests that both the genes in the given allele are dominant. When I say R, small letter r, both, that's in the given allele, both the genes are recessive in nature. Now the question comes, what is dominant? So dominant means, suppose in the given allele, we know that there are two genes are there. Suppose I will talk about chromosome number 14. In the chromosome number 14, for example, I will talk about the gene number 315. So there is a allele, okay, because the gene 315 is present in chromosome number 14. Now in the given cell, I have got two chromosome number protein. One chromosome number protein is given from the father side and another one is given from the mother side. Now they are actually located in the same locus in the same chromosome, and that portion is called as allele. Now sometime what happens, the gene which is given from the father may be of dominant nature, and gene which is given from the chromosome number 14, 315 gene given from the mother is also dominant in nature. Now both the genes are dominant in nature. Then I will call this as homologous genes or homologous chromosomes. Okay, both are equal. Sometimes both may be recessive in nature. Then I will also call it as homologous chromosomes. Sometimes the one gene which is chromosome number, gene number 315 in chromosome number 14, gene number 315, for example, we are taking 315, which is given from the father's chromosome number 14, was dominant in nature, and given from the mother, it is recessive in nature. Then I will write it as capital R and small letter r. Okay. So now, sometime the father's gene 315 is also recessive in nature and mother's gene in 315 is also recessive in nature. I will write it as R and R. Now what do you mean by dominance and recessiveness? Means dominant will always go into express. Recessive will be always submissive. Recessive will not express itself. See, in humans also we have got two type of people. Few people are that way, they are very dominant and they will always put forth their argument very firmly and they will get the work done. And few people are there, so they are not much expressive, but they do the work. They are much expressive. But if two or three people come together, they will be expressive and they will raise the voice and their work can be done. Similarly, in the genes also, we have got two types of genes. One gene is very dominant and it is a dictativeness. Okay, dictative. Another one is submissive and is also follow the second one. Now what happens whenever there is a gene like this, the whole genes which are present in all these chromosomes, thousands of genes are there, they are distributed likewise. Some of the genes are dominant in nature and some of the genes are recessive in nature. Okay. So now gene number 315 in this example, what I told is from the father's side it is dominant nature and from the mother's side also it is dominant in nature. So then there is no problem. Both are very dominant, both are expressive and they will do the work. Okay, whatever protein they want to produce, they produce very clear. Now suppose if the father's gene is dominant and mother's gene is recessive, I will take the example. Suppose if you take this gene number 315 is responsible for giving color to your hair. Okay, so that means your hair color, it wants keratin etc. and melanin etc. So these genes are responsible for producing certain pigmentary substances related to the hair. This gene number 315 is responsible for the proteins or melanin whichever needed for the formation of the color of the hair, for the formation of the coloring of the hair. So that is the work of this particular gene. Suppose if you take now from the father side, whatever the genes are which are coming, it is dominant in nature and that gene is giving a black color to the hair. Suppose the mother's gene which is coming in the chromosome number 14, 315 for example, so that actually gives the color brown. Okay, so now these fused together in the zygote, we know that father's gene is relatively giving the black color, it is a dominant one, and mother's gene which is coming, it is giving the brown color, it is a recessive one. But here in the child, the color of the hair will be black because father's gene is a dominant gene which is stained for the responsible for the black color, whereas mother's gene is a recessive gene which is staining the brown color. As it is recessive, it is not able to overcome this dominant gene, and ultimately what dominant gene says, that will going to work out. So child will have black color hair. So this is what actually dominant. For like this, the dominant gene will be always expressive. A recessive gene will follow it. That's all. That means if the now suppose there is another situation where for the same hair color, the father's gene which is coming is recessive. Okay, it is staining for the black color. For the same hair color, the mother's gene which is coming there in the same allele, it is dominant. And that mother's gene is staining for the brown color. And father's gene is staining for the black color. Now, who will going to succeed? The mother's gene which is a dominant gene. So that will succeed. And as a result, the child will have brown color hairs. So like this, all the genes are basically divided into the dominant and recessive. Okay, suppose if the mother is also having brown color hair and her gene is recessive, father is also staining for the brown color hair. Just notice brown color hair, and her gene, his gene is also recessive. Suppose is also recessive. Now what happens? Both are RR, small r, both are recessive. When two recessive comes together, they become strong and they will express their character. And now the child again will have the browns. Father is also recessive gene and it is staining for the brown color, suppose. And mother's is also a recessive gene, it is staining for the brown color. Then there is now no opposition because it's a homologous chromosome. And now the baby will have the brown color. So this is what exactly the dominance and recessive. Other part of this that we will see later. Just for understanding purpose, I am telling. So like this dominance and recessiveness will be there. So dominant will always show. Now what do you mean by genotype and what do you mean by phenotype? External appearance of a particular person is called as phenotype. Okay. Now genetic expression of a particular person is called as genotype. For example, we take the example of same hair color. Okay. Now genetically, in a given allele of 315, for example, we have got two genes, one from the mother and one from the father. And father's gene was staining for the black color and it is a dominant gene. And mother's gene was staining for the brown color and it is a recessive gene. So capital R and small letter r. Okay. So if you see the genetic expression, mother also has got some part there. She is also having mother has also given her gene, small letter r. Father has also given the capital letter R. The thing is, it's a dominant gene. So which is expressed? Dominant will be expressed when person is having, so phenotypically that child is having black color hair, and mother's part, that is recessive part, has been totally neglected there. But if you look into the genetics, it is R and capital letter R and small letter r. But morphologically or phenotypically what is expressed? Only capital R. कैपिटल R जो बोल रहा है वही आ गया ब्लैक कलर. बट जीनोटाइपिकली आप देखेंगे तो क्या हुआ, वहाँ पे मदर का मैंने रिसेसिव आर भी है बट वो एक्सप्रेस ही नहीं हुआ. इट इज़ नॉट एट ऑल गेट एक्सप्रेस. So genotype and phenotype. Genotype means the genetic expression of a particular allele, whereas phenotype means the structural or morphological appearance. So sometimes phenotype may be equal to genotype. Okay, both are dominant RR, and child is also having black color hair. Both are recessive RR for brown hair, and child is also having brown hair. That's okay. But sometimes capital R and small letter R both are there, but only black color is expressed. So that means phenotype and genotype may not be equal all the time. Okay. Same thing also occur in case of Turner syndrome. Phenotypically, a Turner syndrome child looks like a male. but genotypically it is a female actually, X0. Okay, 46 plus X0. So such a type of things can occur. So this is how, what do you mean by genotype and phenotype. Okay, so now we come to the Mendelian inheritance disorder. So Mendelian worked on these particular concepts of autosomal dominance, dominance and recessiveness, etc. Okay, and he has put forth so many theories about that, and that's what this all loss says. Now, Mendelian inheritance is a type of biological inheritance. The loss that follows the dominance and recessive, etc. The loss of this particular inheritance was originally proposed by Gregory Mendel. We know that. That's in 1865 and in 1886, and he rediscovered it in 19,000. Okay. So when he put forth all these laws of segregation, independent assortment, and all these things, co-dominance and all, initially it was little controversial. People are not able to understand what exactly this is. But when these theories were matched with the Boveri-Sutton chromosome theory of inheritance by Thomas Hunt Morgan in 1915, they become the core classical genetics. Okay. Thomas Hunt Morgan in 1915 put forth his own chromosomal theories, and when that theory was correlated with the Gregory Mendel's laws, Mendelian laws, then he is able to clearly understand the concept of inheritance, and thereafter actually the genetics development starts. A lot of work has been done. Next, further, Ronald Fisher combined these ideas with the theory of natural selection in 1930, and it becomes the basic for population genetics. Then it becomes a basic for population genetics. So this is how the things are going on. Okay, so this is another basic class related to Mendelian inheritance. Okay, so in the next class, so we will see what exactly is Mendelian inheritance and what do you exactly mean by single gene disorders. Thank you very much. We will meet again in the next class. And please don't forget to subscribe my channel, and also please give your valuable comments.